eventually, you know, it has to be for you because it's like nobody else wants it as bad as you do, and nobody's gonna want it for you.
Welcome to Healthier Me, a show that highlights the health journey of everyday individuals in Saginaw who have chosen to take the steps to be well. Welcome back to Healthier Me. I'm your host, Alexandria, and today I'm being joined by Lionel Baldwin. At the tender age of 6, Lionel experienced his first encounter with a bully, which left a lasting impact leading to years of body dysmorphia and shame. However, Lionel decided to overcome the cruelty of others and focus on building both his physical and mental well-being. Thank you so much for joining me.
Of course. Thank you for having me on.
How's everything going with you?
Everything's good. Just getting through my final stretch of my first semester of my sophomore year, and after that, we'll be home for break, so I'll be more than happy.
That is awesome. I know I see your colors, and was that from high school or is this now in U of M?
Yeah, so I got this after my first year of marching band. Like, we all get a varsity jacket, which I thought was really cool. So, yeah.
That's great. So Lionel actually attends the University of Michigan.
Yes, ma'am.
So you made the drive back home to have this conversation with me. So I'm excited for you and for you to share your story. So I do want to ask you before we begin, why should people stick around and listen to this conversation?
I think that my journey is a lot different than a lot of people's. For a long time, I never thought that my weight was an issue. I was always an athlete and a pretty good athlete at that. But I think more than just losing weight, I went through a mental journey that was life-changing, and I feel like I can apply that to so many other areas of my life. So, yeah.
It was so fascinating when I always ask people to share a little bit about yourself, because a lot of the people that I've had on the show, I don't know. It's like my first time talking to them. This is their first time being on a podcast. And when I got to learn about your story, I was like, wow. First off, can I say your age?
Yeah.
Like, he's 19. And I'm like, I don't know if I was doing, I wasn't doing half the stuff you were doing at that age. Yes, I was in the military. I had to work out, but I was thinking, like, if I wasn't in the military, I probably would not have done what you've done. There's no way I would have got up and done a run in the morning. Like, I just wouldn't do it if no one was, like, making me. Yeah. So I'm just excited for them to hear what you have to say. So given that you're so young, usually I'm taking people like, oh, wait, let's go back. I mean, you're so young, but your story started off at 6.
Yeah.
Talk about that moment with us.
So, yeah, I mean, my mom is a great woman. I love my mom so much. One thing that she did when I was growing up was, no matter who it was, cousin, uncle, or even like my own dad, even my little brother, she wouldn't let them talk about me. And I was always a big kid. I think my first time weighing myself, I was like 9, and I was like 170 pounds, something crazy like that. So, yeah, at 6 years old, and this hadn't happened in like preschool or kindergarten, but when I was 6 years old in the first grade, there was this girl, and I don't know how it even came up, or if she just said out of the blue, but she's called me fat out of nowhere, and in that moment I was like I didn't even know what that meant. So like I was like, what is she talking about? And then all the other kids started laughing, and then they're like calling me fat, and I'm like, okay, well, what's going on here? So I go home and I'm like, yeah, Mom, I don't know if I was crying or not, but I'm like, yeah, Mom, this girl, she called me fat. And then my mom is like, well, hell, she's fat too. And I'm like, oh, what do you mean too? Like, what do you mean she's fat too? And then so I'm like, oh my gosh, I am fat. And I think like at that point in my life, even though I was like so young, it was a turning point that I still like remember to this day, 13 years later. So
It's so funny as you're saying that to me, because I read it and I was like, well, she's, I was looking at it from the aspect of your mom just saying that the girl is fat. Like, it is what it is. But I didn't put you in it with it too. Yeah. And the way you said it, I was like, oh, wait, like to some degree, it's like mom was calling you fat and calling her fat. So I don't know, was that the connection that you got?
Yeah. And at that point, I just realized like, okay, well, I am fat. And I think it was a slip up on her part, just trying to like defend me. Cause that's like a defense mechanism that like I even still use to this day. I try to work on not doing it, but a lot of the times, like instead of looking at like our own problems, we just were like, okay, well, they have a problem too. So it's not that big of a problem. So I think like just to make her 6-year-old feel better, that's what she told me in the moment. But as soon as I heard it too, I was like, oh man, like this isn't like I'm 6 years old. I haven't heard this yet. So yeah, that that's how I like took it. And I think it was probably for the best because I would have went a long time. Then it would have hurt a lot more. Probably more years down the line if I wouldn't have found out. So yeah.
You say found out.
Yeah, like I had no idea. But yeah.
I mean, but like, I don't know. It's so weird with kids. And I think even having these conversations with people who've been on the show, a lot of their stories always start around like middle school. But yours started so early.
Yeah.
Like at 6 years old. And the fact you still remember it and that it left like such a mark.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So how did that, I don't know if I say help, but what was that feel like for you going forward?
So, I mean, after that, it just felt like the jokes just started pouring in. And unfortunately, like she was the first person to do it. So I just thought that like she was the reason, okay, everybody knows I'm fat because of her. But it's obviously noticeable. It's something you can see. So from that point on, I guess I just started to try to find different mechanisms that would like help me get through it. Because I wasn't the only person being bullied. Like I had a friend who was really short. People would bully him for that. I had a friend who was really dark. People would bully her for that. Or someone who was really light, somebody who has freckles, eczema. So I'm like, okay, I'm not the only person getting bullied. But I was like the only person getting bullied for his weight. Just because I guess at 6, there aren't a lot of like super big kids. And I was like probably one of the biggest kids in my class, if not the biggest. So I think after I got into sports, which helped a lot because if you're an athlete, like of any sort, you know that there are a lot of big athletes out there. So if you're a big and you're an athlete, it's like, okay, well, at least you're doing something with the fact that you're big. So that helped a lot. And I started to get a lot of friends. And if you have friends and your friends are super popular, even in like elementary school, popularity is a thing, which is crazy. But you have friends and you're playing these sports with them, they'll look at you a different way. So they're like, okay, well, he is fat, but he plays football and he plays basketball and he's friends with him and he's cool and we don't bully him. So if we don't bully him, then we're not going to talk about him as much because, so there's like a elementary hierarchy, which is crazy thinking back on it. But so just like getting those connections, and I was also smart, so that helped too. So it's friends with the really good athletes and the really smart kids. And so that helped a lot. But it gave me like a way to deal with these things at such a young age by finding out ways to not have people, I guess, talk about me so badly.
So basically you try to shift the conversation to look at me shine in this athletic world versus looking at me just personally.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so crazy. I just hate to hear those things happening for kids, and it's, how as teachers, how as parents, how do we help? How do we support? I mean, I heard what your mom said, right?
Yeah.
Like, oh, she's fat too, but what should she have said? Or what would you, now being older, what do you think you would have said to yourself? Or what could you say?
I probably would have told myself like before I got to school, because I mean, I don't know how she would have brung that up at home, but somehow just like, I think that not being sheltered, and my mom has never sheltered us from anything else. I think probably in like middle school is where she started to be like, okay, well, this is like what the world looks like. And I went to public school, so I didn't go to private school. So that's like the most unsheltered that I feel like a kid could possibly be. So I think if like she would have allowed that to happen at home, even though like, you don't want your own family members talking about you, but it would have been something that I heard from at least somebody that I love instead of somebody that I don't. For me, it feels a little better because I'm like, okay, well, he's my uncle, so he doesn't mean any harm by calling me like fat, or he's my brother, so maybe he doesn't mean any harm, but he's just like we're joking. Yeah. But to have it done by somebody who, I've never had a like interaction with hurt a lot. So, but she handled it the best way she could, I guess. And yeah, so.
Yeah, I guess that's an interesting perspective because sometimes you hear when people get bullied by their family that it's like worse though.
Yeah, really.
So it's just like to kind of hear that perspective around it. I don't know which one. I don't know if I would want either one, to be honest with you. Yeah. I don't know, but it doesn't sound like that was even a thing. I don't think you were 6.
Right.
Like we're not looking at weight right now. We're having fun. You clearly were healthy.
Yeah.
So I hate that was the topic, but kids will be kids and we just need better training.
Right.
So I know a part of your story, you talked about going through those years in school where you felt like you needed to cover up.
Yeah.
Can you explain that or talk about that a little bit more?
Yeah. So this was actually a very hard part in the story for me because I didn't stop doing this till I was probably 17 years old. And my family members would always point it out. But no matter how hot it was, like it could be 90 degrees, 100 degrees outside, like hot Michigan days, and I'm out there with like a t-shirt and a hoodie on. And I remember it's also happened in elementary school. And my mom still knows this person to this day. And every time she sees him, she still has like a little animosity towards him, which I think is crazy because we're 10 years in the future. But, moms will be moms. But yeah, one day in elementary school, it was so hot and I was out there, like I'm sweating and I have this hoodie on and I'm playing basketball. And I'm like, okay, well, it's hot. So I'm going to take this hoodie off. And I try to take my hoodie off, but like the inside of my shirt sticks to the hoodie. So I just rip it off. And next thing you know, I'm like have no shirt on. And it was interesting because like none of the kids noticed this, but it was a staff member who was like at least 25 at that point who pointed it out. Like, I don't know what he was, but he was a staff member that pointed it out and like told the other kids. So now all these kids like started laughing at me, like the whole playground full of kids. I think it was like maybe 40 or 50 kids at the time. And then after that, it was like, okay, well, this is what happens when you don't have a hoodie on. Like you were right. So no matter how hot it was, no matter like what the consequences were, if I was feeling lightheaded or like I was going to throw up, I would always wear a hoodie. And that really sucked, obviously because it's hot, but mostly because like everybody noticed. And when everybody notices you trying to cover up, it's like it's almost not a cover up anymore because you're put out there. So, yeah.
It's making me think about like other kids who they try to find some other avenue to like hide. Is it shame?
Yeah.
Would you say that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It was very, very like, because after you get called fat, now you're like, okay, well, what parts of me are fat? And my family, like, we don't have super big legs. So all of my fat was like stored in my midsection and my chest and my back. So I would always wear shorts. I had no problem wearing shorts, but for some odd reason, I just couldn't let people see like any part of my upper body, even if it was like my arms or something. So, yeah.
This word, because I feel like now we're such in a body positivity era or society, but you keep, you're using the word fat, but it's only because somebody else said that.
Yeah.
But did you ever really feel that way?
Not until they said it. I like, not until they said I was like fat, I didn't like really start to feel it. But there's just like something about like being that big, because I wasn't like probably severely obese kid. Like I said, when I first weighed myself, I was 9 years old, 170 pounds. And at the time, like my mother was bigger too, and my dad was big too. Only small person was my brother. I don't know how he was so small. He just never like quite had the growth spurt or anything. He also like wouldn't eat that many foods, super picky. But yeah. And then I think I've always had like a very like after my business, not my business, but the word or the memo was put out there that I was like fat or overweight. That's just what everybody referred to me as. Like, this is the fat kid. I know you're fat. You're this. You're that.
And that's what you just started to identify with.
Yeah, for a long time until last December. So it's almost been about a year now until I truly stopped calling myself fat. So
wow, it's just amazing. How words can really stick with us.
Yeah.
And it sounded like it did for you for a long period. Yeah. So I know that through those years, you decided to get into sports. So talk about the transition. I know you actually got into football where the size mattered on the field.
Yeah. So when I was 9, that was when I had weighed myself because in that particular league, it was a tackle football league, and you had to be a certain weight to play a certain position. And I'd always play quarterback, even though I was so big, which was interesting. And I was really good at quarterback. When I got there, they were like, okay, Lionel, you're too big. Like, we know we can look at you and tell you're too big. So you're going to be on the D-line. And in sports, like, and I go to college with a lot of these athletes. Like, these are people who normally, like, if you saw them walking on the side of the street, you'd be like, yeah, this is a big fat guy. But now, like, when they put on some pads and they put on, a little bit of muscle, they're like, people's favorite people.
That is so interesting.
Yeah, so sports can really like change the identity of a person. If you're in sports and you're considered overweight, now you're somebody. So for me, my weight started to be like really, it started to create kind of an identity for me because, yeah, I was so big, but that's who made me who I was on the field, and who I was on the field kind of made me who I was off the field. So this newfound confidence from the sports, from football in specific at that time, really helped because, I mean, my teammates loved me, my coaches loved me. Nobody on the team ever called me fat because they were like, well, Lionel is fat, but, you know, he's one of our, like, he's probably the best football player on the team. So, you know, we appreciate him for being this big, and we couldn't, you know, love him more. So I think that part really helped, and having people come support me. And it was like finally being, because at quarterback, like when you're playing that position, you don't need to be that big. Like there's no point. But when you're on the line, it's like you being big is what your advantage is, because now you're stronger and you can move people better. So not only did I get support from like even peers and other kids, I got it from more family members, and like even my dad's support was, I feel like, higher than, and it was great. It was a great time in my life for sure.
So how long did you play football?
So I played tackle football from when I was 9 until I was 17, but my dad always used to say, you've been playing football since you were 2, and I didn't know that he was serious until one day I found a picture of me from 2007 playing football. So I would have been 2. And
so that didn't change the mindset? Like, wait, I needed that weight at 2 years old.
Yeah, well,
no, I'm just kidding.
At 2, I was so small, which is interesting. I don't know when I got like big, but at 2, I was like a normal sized kid.
Yeah. You were building. It was building. So at 6, you were just ready to play tackle at that point. No, I'm just kidding. But that is so interesting. So you've been playing since you were 2 years old.
Long time. And I just stopped senior year of high school. So yeah.
So now talk about that transition from football to wrestling.
Oh my gosh. It was so, I mean, it comes with so many like emotions, like happy and sad. And it was, I did not plan on playing, or I didn't plan on wrestling for that long. Especially if you had told me you're wrestling in college, like club wrestling, I would have been like, there's no way I'm doing this. My first day in there, football is a hard sport. And I don't take away anybody who does it, but anybody who's ever wrestled knows that like if you ever wrestled or like did any type of combat sport, it's probably the hardest sport you've ever done. So I walk in the room, I'm thinking, yeah, I've played football for a long time. And my first practice, it's like 70, 80, probably 90 degrees in the room, something crazy.
In the wrestling room.
Yeah, in the wrestling room, we're wrestling. And I'm sweating before practice even start. Like I'm drenched, which is how it's supposed to be. But I'm just like, man, we're 15 minutes in practice, I'm drenched in sweat. And yeah, I mean, it was very tough. And one thing about wrestling I feel like I should mention is in football, you're padded up. You got so many pads and you're like, you look pretty bulky. In wrestling, you have on this singlet, which is like, it's just, I mean, it shows everything you have. It's basically like I don't even know how to explain it. It's a very tight skin wear, and you have it, and it stops at like there's straps, and everything that you have is gonna show in the singlet. So I'm in the room and I'm like, they're telling us about that, and I'm like, I have to wear one of these. I'm like, can I put on shorts and a t-shirt or something? I'm still wearing hoodies out in the like so that was really interesting. And wrestling like taught me, like I saw my teammates work so hard. People like teammates like Melvin and Steven, these were captains, and Frank back then, working so hard. And I was like, one day I gotta be like these guys. And my coach was a great coach. And I remember him pulling me to the side, Coach Angel, one day, and he was like, you know, for a big kid, you're kind of soft. And I was like, and we looked back on it and we laughed. No, he's like one of my favorite people. I still talk to him to this day. Just had a conversation with him less than a week ago. Yeah. But just seeing those guys transition my mindset from something that I thought was like, yeah, you're a pretty tough guy, to something so much different. And by the time I had to wear a singlet on the mat, something about being a wrestler really changed my perspective on like just how I was. So I don't even think my first meet I thought about putting the singlet on, because I had this newfound confidence. Like, I'm a wrestler. I'm wrestling on this team. I'm starting. And it was interesting because unlike other sports, like people will talk about you, but my wrestling team, they never really did that. I was always like their heavyweight from day one, and I sucked. I mean, I was terrible. My first tournament, I got pinned. I won my first match, which was crazy. But I got pinned my second match, and you could hear the other team, they're like, put him in a cradle, which is one of the most, I think, embarrassing wrestling moves you can be in. So his teammates are telling him this, and he's laughing as he pins me, and I sucked. But from day one, my team really embraced me, that did a lot, like for my confidence on the mat and especially off the mat, big time.
I've heard, like, as you're talking, I'm hearing so many things because I'm thinking about the kid who wore the hoodie because he was ashamed
Yeah.
to now being almost, I know you said, is it singlet? Is that how you
It's a
pronounce
singlet,
it?
yeah.
Okay, because I'm thinking leotard in my head for some reason.
It's pretty much like that. If
Like a
anybody doesn't know
leotard.
what a singlet is, it's pretty much a
It's like,
leotard. But
you know, this tight outfit and your legs and, you know, now you got the upper body kind of showing too.
Yeah,
So it's building your confidence.
yeah.
Your teammates are changing. So it's
Yeah.
not about, I mean, is the size still important to you about being, you know, really big? I don't know.
Yeah, so in wrestling there are weight classes. And in high school, besides heavyweight, which goes all the way up to 285, it's like 215. So to be like a good heavyweight, I feel like you should be somewhere between the 240 and 260 range. You don't want to be too big because then you're kind of slow, but you don't want to be too small because then you're really weak. And at that time, I remember we always do these tests. It's like a pinch body fat test, and I was 49% body fat, which is like, I mean, this is severely obese at the time. I didn't even know what that meant. I'm just like, yeah, I'm 49% body fat. It's the highest on the team. I'm the biggest person on the team, so it's supposed to be like that. It's not supposed to be like that.
Interesting.
But yeah, so
let's look at this picture because that it's, what weight are you at this point? Like,
yes.
what's the size?
So in
of
this
that?
picture, I'm about 255. When you're bigger, it doesn't take that much like to cut any weight. So I, like as soon as I started really focusing on my diet, I was like 5 pounds lighter in like the first couple weeks. So yeah.
So you're around 255. Now, is that the competition weight, like 255 as a
So,
wrestler?
Yeah, that's about what I wrestled at in high school, 260, 255. This is like the summer of college when I first started to lose weight. So any given time, like if I were to just go to a practice, I would cut weight from sweat alone and I'd put a little bit back on, but it's so hot in there, you cut so much weight. So this is about what I would wrestle at in that picture.
Okay. So talk to me, I mean, about the weight. I know in this conversation you used the word fat.
Yeah.
So what was your biggest size?
I think the biggest I'd ever gotten during COVID was about 270, 275. Just because, you know, you're not doing anything. You're sitting in the house, you're eating all day. And I didn't start. There was a point in COVID where I started to powerlift on a daily basis with Herman. He's like a powerlifter now. But yeah, before that I was about 275. And I didn't think it was that big of a problem because I'm like, you know, well, everybody's gaining weight. We're in COVID. But now looking back on it, it was a really, really tough time because I couldn't do anything. I had stopped wrestling, which like was my only saving hope at that point. And I was just sitting up eating all day.
So during COVID, what grade were you in at that point?
I was in the 9th grade still.
Okay.
When we first went on shutdown, I was in the 9th grade.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And we don't really have those conversations about how it affected the children, but it
Yeah.
sounded like you started to maybe binge eat and things like that.
Yeah. Well, I had
during that
always
time.
binge ate, which was interesting. Like, and sometimes I still do it now. But like being 265, you have to eat a lot of calories to be 265. And I don't think I have a super slow metabolism or anything like that. I just think I just love to eat food. So like Thanksgiving's coming up and I'm thinking about what am I going to eat now? I've been thinking about it for a couple weeks. So I just love to eat a lot of food at one time for some odd reason. That's just like, I don't know, it's more of a comfort. So even then, like I would always eat I wouldn't eat a super big breakfast or lunch, but dinner would probably be 2,000, 3,000 calories, and then desserts like another 2,000 calories just because I'm a big brownie guy. You give me a pan of brownies, I'll eat the whole thing. So, yeah.
Wow. But I mean, like I said, to see you standing here today and to go through your photos, it's pretty amazing that at a young age you decided. No one else. It doesn't sound like there was a doctor like, hey, Lionel, you need to lose this. It was you who made a decision to say, I'm going to drop this weight. So as you're going through high school, you decided to make the shift from football to wrestling. And now you're in college. So you're not doing the sports anymore at the college level.
Yeah, I'm
right?
just doing club wrestling right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. It was a point in your story when you discussed losing weight and you were around 260 pounds.
Yeah.
And you said you were doing everything right. You're like counting your calories and you step on a scale, but it only showed that you lost 5 pounds.
Yeah,
like,
that's crazy.
Tell me about that. Like that was so funny to read. So talk about that moment.
So it was like a month in and I'm like, I'm doing a calorie deficit. I'm eating like 2,500 calories a day and everything's right. Like I'm drinking smoothies. I'm eating my greens. I'm like, everything is like textbook. I'm doing 30 minutes incline on the treadmill. I'm jogging. Like everything's supposed to be right. And I'm stepping on the scale like a month later. It says 255. So I'm like, is this like this is crazy. Like, there's no way I'm losing. I know it's a slow process, but 5 pounds in a month, like I know, like the numbers are not, numbering. So I'm like, I'm supposed to be losing more weight. So then I go home and I hop on, and my mom's like, you look a lot smaller. Have you been losing weight? I'm like, yeah, but I only lost like 5-7 pounds, like something small. And she's like, nah, there's no way. So I hop on her scale. I'm like 240 pounds. So I'm like, oh, okay, well, your scale has to be wrong. Like, because the one at school says I'm 255. And she's like, no, like this one is right. And so she steps on it, my brother steps on it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I've lost 20 pounds. Yeah. So I'm like, I get back to school maybe a couple days later, I'm like, no, I gotta make sure. So I put the weight on like a 15-pound, 20-pound dumbbell on the scale, and it shows up 15 pounds heavier. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is really working. So at that point, I was like, okay, this is working now, and I should just keep doing what I'm doing. Yeah. Instead, I was like, something has to change before, but now I was really confident in like my methods that were working. So
I liked when I read it. I was like, I laughed when I read it, but I was like, that is so cool, because a lot of people would have given up.
Yeah.
Some people are so skill focused that if they don't lose the 10 pounds in a month, they're done. They're back to crash eating, and it's just like, whatever, it doesn't work. But you kept going. Yeah. Why?
Really, I just knew that it wasn't something I wanted anymore. At first, I don't know if I mentioned this in the story, but at first I had a girlfriend. We're not dating anymore, but I had a girlfriend when I was going into college. And my reason for losing weight at the time was, well, she's going to a different college, so I got to lose this weight so she doesn't cheat on me or something, because I got to be more attractive for her. That was my main purpose at first. I was like, yeah, I'm going to be an adult now. Nobody wants a guy who's like overweight, so I got to lose weight. So, and so, yeah, that was like my main point at first. But like eventually, it has to be for you, because it's like nobody else wants it as bad as you do, and nobody's going to want it for you. And there becomes a point where like the reason it just can't be somebody else, because that's not going to be enough to motivate you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the reason I just kept going is mostly because I was really tired of living in that body, tired of like waking up every day, and like you can be having a great day, like everything's supposed to be great, but there's just something wrong. And that something was that I was fat, and it really like every day looking in the mirror, like it sucked. No matter how much I tried to convince myself that you're this, you're that, it just wasn't it. And it was a lot easier in high school because I was a valedictorian, and I was the wrestling captain, football captain, student council president. I was all this stuff. So all that stuff was cool. And then you get to college, and it's like, who am I now? Like I wasn't a marching band at that point. I was just a regular student. So I was like, what? There's nothing about me that I really like anymore, because all that stuff is gone. So I just needed to have a reason to wake up and look in the mirror and be like, this is who you want to be. And I now I can look in the mirror every day and be like, yeah, I'm confident. I'm like, you're the guy who you want to be. Like you used to dream about being this guy. And so that's why I kept going, just to be here right now.
Yeah. Oh, what's coming up is like, you had to shift through different identities.
Yeah.
And like really find your place.
Yeah.
And it's going to continue to change, because you're only 19.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know if you know that.
Yeah.
You're only 19, and you've taken on so many different identities, but it sounds like this new one is the one like you've always wanted to be.
Yeah.
And
I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah. So I'm hoping it doesn't change too much, but I like this me that I am right now for sure.
Yes. I want to look at your photo in the black of you there.
Yeah.
Where are you at right there?
I'm at the IM. So we have 3 gyms on campus, but my dorm is by like the biggest gym. So that's a gym. The same picture of me, like the sweaty kind of photo where I was bigger, that's the same gym that I am in that picture. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
And what size are you now? Or in that photo?
I think in that photo I'm about 210. So that was I think that was taken in maybe March. So I was doing that 75 hard challenge. So I was in the gym 7 times a week, not really weightlifting 7 times a week, but doing something. So at that point, I like that picture a lot, because not only do I like look good, but I like feel really, really good in that. Like I'm I'm looking at myself and I'm like, oh yeah, this is this is it. This is
is
it
the
right
one.
here. Yeah. Yeah, I can't wait to post
definitely
that.
giving me bodybuilder vibes because
Yeah.
I'm asking myself as I was reading, I'm like, what's next for you?
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, we talked about the different identities from football to wrestling to now you're in college and
Yeah.
you're finding your way there.
Yeah.
So fitness wise, what do you think is next for you? Or what do you
So
want to be next for you?
it's interesting you asked because December 8th, I'm going to start training for a marathon. And I ran a half marathon this summer, just like around Saginaw, just because I woke up one morning. I don't know what it is. Oh, I do know what it is, but there's I don't know if I think I mentioned him in my paper, but David Goggins is a guy that I really like. I love his mindset. And he's like if you can do whatever you want to do. So that morning I woke up and I was like, all right, today we're running a half marathon. I don't know what made me decide that today we're running 13 and a half miles or 13.6 miles or something like that. But yeah, and it might have been 13.1. But yeah, 13.1 miles. But yeah, so as far right now I'm just wrestling, so my weight fluctuates a lot because I make a big cut for tournaments and I do a little bit of weightlifting as well now, not as much as I used to because I'm wrestling. But after my wrestling tournament, I'll be training for a marathon. I don't know where I want to run it. Somewhere where there's good food because I still love food so much. So it'll be somewhere like New York, LA, like Texas, somewhere with really, really good food. So yeah.
That is so, I am just amazed at your mindset.
Yeah. Thank you.
The fact that you've done so much. I don't know any 19-year-olds who are on a path like this. And I can only imagine what the next few years will look like for you. But I mean, you talk about somebody who went from like you talked about a 49% body fat.
Yeah.
And now I'm sure that's a lot lower.
I think now it's like today it's probably has to be less than like 17. Yeah.
That's
so
cool.
yeah.
That is so awesome. Over 60 pounds you've lost.
Yeah.
Is there any more to lose? Is it just right now you're just building?
Yeah. So, I mean, right now, my walk around weight's like 210, 215. But I wrestle, so unfortunately I have to cut down to like 197. And that first cut was dreadful. I was like, I didn't know if I could even make it. 197 is, I don't think like that's like a super healthy weight for me, but the way wrestling works is, unfortunately, you got to be a little unhealthy with your weight at some point in time, like the better you get, which it kind of sucks, but it's just how the sport is. So I'll be 197 for that. But right now I'm just trying to like build my body up. So like there are certain parts of my body that I want to be bigger. Like I want a bigger chest, bigger arm. I really want a bigger everything. And then a smaller like waist and smaller stomach. So yeah, just really working on the day-to-day to like help that be better. So
that's so cool. And you put in your paper that about the grass is greener. And so most people say the grass is greener wherever you water it. But you said that the grass is greener.
Yeah.
It is greener on the other side.
Yeah, for sure.
Explain that to me.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Huh, that's interesting. The grass is greener wherever you water. I've never actually heard that. I do really like that. I think for me, I remember talking to Herman, the powerlifter I've mentioned, and even him right now. I had a conversation with him about just like my weight loss and talking to him. And right now he's lost, I want to say over 80 pounds, something like that in like the last 2 months. And the first time I came back home to like for something, we worked out together. And I remember him saying like, you made it to the other side. And I was like, wow, like this is like, I really have made it to the other side. And I even get emotional talking about it right now. Cause like, I feel like for overweight people, at least somebody who wants to see a change in their weight, because not everybody wants to see a change, and I think that's like completely fine. And unfortunately, not everybody can see a change, which my heart goes out to those people who really want one, but just for some odd reason, like medical-wise, can't see one. But I was fortunate enough to be able to see a change, and really quick, a lot quicker than most at that. But I just think the grass is greener because there are so many things that a lot of people would know, but there are other things that like only like an overweight person would know, like that gets better. Like you're walking up a flight of stairs and I'm not tired, or I'm wearing, like in that picture, I'm wearing a tank. You would have never seen me in a beater like even 3 months prior to that picture. So I think just who I am is so much better. People telling you look better, not being so like shameful about everything you do, because it's like when you're a bigger guy, everything is like can make a joke. Somebody can make a joke out of everything. Like, oh, you're gonna eat that. Oh, you're walking like this. You're running like this. But now, like, and I just used to laugh at those things, even though they weren't funny to me. But I didn't want to be the guy who's, you know, always lashing out at people because of, you know, his insecurities. But now, like, I'm so confident. Like, I can eat a big meal and nobody says anything to me. I can go run 3 miles, and like I ran 5K this morning just because, and I was fine. And like, it's like just things like that, just being able to live a better life. People find me more attractive now. You know, I get to work out with, everybody wants to work out with you now, now that I've lost so much weight. And yeah, I just think I don't think I would ever go back to how things were before, but just go forward like with how things are now. So
that is beautiful. Oh my gosh, that is so amazing. I love everything that you just said. I think what stood out for me, and as I was reading the story, because I know we keep saying story, everybody who comes on the show send me their bio or health journey. And so he sent me his. And when I read it, I picked up on identity. Like that was a major part of it, where I was like, he's shifting. He's trying to find his place. And I feel like you found it. Yeah. Especially, you know, as we've had this conversation, you've definitely found your identity. But I think the most important thing that I see is that you are confident within yourself. And sometimes when we're not, when we come into this space of shame or embarrassment or whatever we're feeling, that's what we see. Yeah. And I think we attract what we are. Yeah. And so you've had to do a shift in order to see that there are people around you who are in full support of you. Yeah. You know, sometimes we can put a spotlight on the people who are saying the negative things, but it's also because of what we're feeling on the inside. And I think that amplifies. Yeah. But now that you're in a new space, you can see that there's so much support and there's so much love around you. So that's what I don't know. That was what came to me as we're having the conversation, as I read your story, and so beautiful. Is there anything you want to say to the people out there who, you know, we're at the end? Is there anything you want to say to inspire or to encourage them?
I think a couple things. First, a big thing for me is more about mental toughness. Physical toughness is great, but one day it'll all go away. You know, as we're getting older and as we get out of our prime, hopefully I'm not in it yet, but as we get out of our prime, we'll be, you know, weaker and we won't be able to do the things that we once did. So I think that mentally being able to push every day, no matter how strong you are, and just give whatever your 100% is at that point, is what we should all strive to do. And the second thing that I wish I would have told myself when I started this weight loss journey is that losing weight does not make you happy. And I remember somebody telling me that. They were like, you know, losing this weight won't make you happy. And I was like, dude, you don't know what it feels like to be fat. So you're not about to tell me that losing weight is not going to make me happy. And as I sat there 6 months later, 60 pounds lighter, I had a realization. I was like, you're just as unhappy now as you were 6 months ago, if not unhappier. And so the losing weight won't make you happy and it won't make you love yourself. But loving yourself and, you know, trying to make sure that you love who you are no matter what size you are is going to make you love yourself. And of course, if you have a goal, you should try to meet that goal or reach that goal of weight loss. But you should never lose weight for the sole purpose of loving yourself. But you should love yourself for the sole purpose of loving yourself, because that's what's going to make your mental health better in the end. So yeah, I really wish I would have known that, because I think it took an extra 3 months for me to actually get to that place where I was confident enough. Because this picture isn't in, I don't think this picture is in December. This picture is like in March. So an additional 3 months after I had lost all that weight to really start to love who I am and be confident. So, yeah.
Gosh, this was beautiful. I'm so excited
thank you
for this conversation. I'm excited for people to listen to it. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.